Hi, this is Pastor Scott Bates of Edmond's Emmanuel Baptist Church. You know there's war and there's healthcare crisis, inflation, recession, depression. And even with all of our modern conveniences from cell phones to the internet, those things that are supposed to make life easier, we'd have to admit that in 2008, life is hard, it's challenging. And as you read the daily Oklahoman or watch the local or national news, you can quickly see that life is full of a lot of tough stuff, and it's hard to be hopeful and encouraged in 2008. And even though you might feel like you're drowning in a sea of discouragement, I'm so excited to share with you some very, very good news. There's good news that began about 2,000 years ago, and that good news has made it all the way to 2008. And this good news has changed the lives of millions and millions of people, including me. Matter of fact, this good news is so good that it can carry you through the most horrific news of life so that you can find joy and promise all the way through eternity. The good news is found in Jesus Christ. The good news is Jesus Christ. And the Jesus I speak of is not the Jesus that some people form into their own image. I'm talking about the Jesus of the Bible. The Jesus, the King that was born in a humble stable in Bethlehem. I'm talking about the Jesus who lived a sinless life, who died in my place and died in your place. I'm talking about the Jesus who carried my cross and your cross through the streets of Jerusalem to a criminal's hill outside the city. I'm talking about the Jesus who was crucified. And I'm talking about the Jesus who is so loving and yet so powerful that the grave couldn't hold him. I'm talking about the Jesus who rose from the grave on the third day, the very first Easter. And you know, if you take all the elements and the words of the life of Jesus Christ from His life, the moment He breathed His last breath on the cross to His glorious resurrection, all of that together would spell hope. And as we think about Easter, the celebration of the resurrection of Christ, it's all about hope. And it's kind of fascinating because the thing our world not only needs to hear but experience is hope. And it's like hope is shouting to us from the empty grave where the body of Jesus Christ once laid. Can you fathom what our communities would be like if everyone possessed life through the hope that comes from the resurrection of Christ? You remember the tsunami that wreaked death and disaster in 2004 in Indonesia? The people of that region have been changed forever by what they experienced. Can you imagine what our community, what your community would be like if a tsunami of hope flooded the lives of all people? And wouldn't it be a great thing to see people who exist in life, not just barely making it from day to day, but have their lives overflowing with hope? This I know, that entire communities and states and even nations can experience life-changing hope because of the resurrected Christ. So what would the Jesus kind of hope look like? Well, you'd see it in attitudes. People with resurrection hope have the kind of attitude that says nothing is impossible with God. They have the attitude that says, this is the day the Lord has made. I'll rejoice and be glad in it. It's the attitude that says, I am crucified with Christ, and no longer do I live, but Christ lives in me. With this Jesus kind of hope, you'd also see forgiveness. You know, one powerful tool that all of us have to change lives is forgiveness. And when we forgive, it reflects the resurrected Christ, and it brings hope into the lives of people. And with this Jesus kind of hope, you'd also see sharing. Guess what? People filled with hope share. They share the good news of Jesus, but they also share by the way they give themselves away as they minister to others. Now realize there's probably two groups of people who I'm speaking to. For those who don't know the kind of hope that I'm talking about, I encourage you to fully investigate Jesus Christ. And I pray that you would surrender your life to Him and learn of the hope that He provides. But I also speak to those who have resurrection hope. And I pray that you'll be part of a huge hope tsunami that floods your area of influence with your attitude and your forgiveness and by the way you share Christ. Why? John 3:16 says it best, for God, who is the greatest being, so loved, which is the greatest emotion, the world, which is the greatest number of people, that He gave, which is the greatest sacrifice, His only begotten Son, which is His greatest possession, that whosoever, which is the greatest invitation, believes in Him, which is the greatest plan of salvation, would not perish, which is the greatest damnation, but have everlasting life, which is our greatest possession. And may the hope of Easter change your life forever.